This on? Yes, okay, thank you. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Monmouth County. My name is Liz Tortorella, and my pronouns are she and her. I serve on the worship committee, and one thing we do is organize services when Reverend Craig is not in the pulpit. Happy to talk to you about that anytime. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. Our mission is to create community, transform ourselves, and transform the world. This morning, we welcome our guest speaker, UUCMC member, Rhea Carroll, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. Reverend Rhea, member of UUCMC, has studied science of mind for 40 years. She was the founder of the Center for Spiritual Living in Asbury Park. She has given talks all over New Jersey and Paoli, Pennsylvania. She holds guided meditations on the beach, weather permitting. I draw your attention to the back side of your orders of service for announcements and service information for next week. For those of you on the live stream and for video viewers, the order of service link is available to you in the YouTube service description box. After the service, refreshments will be served in the community room, and people of all ages are welcome to visit with one another. If you are new to us, please do check out our website, where you can sign up to get all the latest news of the congregation by email. We look forward to getting to know you better. Please put your devices on silent as we enter into worship together. And just a little note on the order of service, you'll see Helen Coe's name at some point. That should just be Elaine Held, our pianist for today. Welcome again to this place of love and hope. And for now, we're going to do a hymn. So please rise in body or spirit to sing 337, Have I Not Known?
Good morning. We arrive as individuals, as couples, as families, as neighbors, as friends. We got here by walking, by biking, by riding, by driving, by connecting. We bring with us our joys and sorrows, our laughter and our tears, our worries and our fears, our questions and our beliefs, our ethics and our values. Some of us arrived early this morning, or joined us 10 minutes ago, or encountered obstacles on their way, or will just arrive in time for the sermon, or will sign online later this week or even next month. We are sitting in pews, leaning on walkers or canes, stretching in the aisles, settling in wheelchairs, and relaxing in recliners. We, members, friends, and visitors alike, come from many paths and join together as one congregation to lift up our highest ideals. We have gathered. Now let us worship. And to do the chalice lighting, I invite Marina to light the chalice this morning. We gather at this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together.
That was, is that on? There we go. That was lovely. Thank you very much. Today I'm going to tell you a Jataka tale. Jataka tales are from India, and they're ancient. They may go back thousands of years, I don't know, but a long time. Their way of They came about as people's imaginations of what if the Buddha had lived in this situation or in that particular form. And in this case, he's a quail. I'll get to that in a minute. The name of my tale is called The Quarrelsome Quails. Now, quarrelsome means that they like to bicker and argue, and quail is a kind of a bird. It's a very plump little bird, and some people like to eat quails, which fits into this story. I'll tell you some other things about quails. They like to live in families, groups, and sometimes multiple family groups, so that they're very social. And another thing is that if a quail is in trouble, they have a particular bird call that signals that something's wrong, and other quails will come and investigate, figure out what's going on, and see if they can help. Okay, the quarrelsome quails. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there were all these quails in this big, beautiful forest, and they were like people in that some were very cooperative, some were very argumentative, some were this and some were that. But they lived pretty well. Among these quails was one leader. He was really kind of the Buddha quail because he was very, very wise and very helpful and thoughtful. There's another character in our story, and that is the hunter. The hunter has two weapons. One of them is a whistle. Have you figured that one out? The whistle sounds like the distress call of the quails. And the other is a net. So his plan is to blow the whistle and get the sound out there that there's a quail in distress, and the quails will come to check out things, and then he'll throw his net over them all, and he'll gather them up, and he'll put them in a bag, and off to home he'll go. And it works really well. He gathers quite a few quail that first day, goes home and shows his wife, and they have plenty to eat, and they sell some to neighbors as well. Then he is so successful, he goes back and he does it again, and it happens day after day, and he's really bringing in the quails, and the quails, of course, are suffering. And the word gets to the Buddha quail, who flies in and says, "What's going on here?" And he learns about what's happening, and he stops and thinks for a minute and says, "I have a plan. But you need to listen carefully, and you need to cooperate with each other. It won't work if you don't." So they listen carefully, and the next day when the hunter comes, he blows his whistle, and when the quails gather, he throws his net. But they have a plan this time. They stick their heads out of the holes of the net, and there's someone who's designated to count. 1, 2, and on 3, they all fly together. They go to a thorn bush some distance away and land on it, and the thorns catch the net, and they slip out below and they fly away. Of course, that hunter is running after as fast as he possibly can, and when he gets to the thorn bush, there are no quails and only a torn net. So he carefully extracts his net from the thorns, goes home, and mends his thorns. Well, this keeps happening. The hunter's wife says, "We need food to eat. What's going to happen?" And the hunter said, "Don't you worry. I know what nature is like, human nature, quail nature. They're doing such a wonderful job. They are so smart and so dedicated to cooperating and dedicated to their plan. But the time will come when they start to bicker and to argue and to quarrel with each other. It won't last forever." And you know what? He was right. It wasn't too long before this one said, Sally, you just never start flying when we do. And Joe, would you please pick up the pace? I feel like I'm doing more than my share of the work. And they started to bicker and argue. And the next time the hunter came and he threw his net, he got his quails. Well, the Buddha quail heard all this discussion, all these cries of pain, and he came flying to see what happened. And he said, you were doing so well. What's the problem? It's not good enough to have a good plan and do it once or twice. You have to keep discipline yourself and keep doing it. They hung their heads and said, yes, you're right. And the next time the hunter came, he threw his net. And they almost did it. And all of a sudden, one started to bicker and say, stop falling on me, do this, that. And they didn't cooperate. The hunter pulled them up, put them in a bag, and off to home he went. Well, some of those quails said, I've had enough of this group. And they flew off to another part of the forest. And those who stayed and continued to quarrel, most of them are someone's dinner. And may we sing the children out, go now in peace.
Every week in this congregation, we are provided with an opportunity to practice generosity. This is your invitation to contribute to the well-being of our congregation and to our social justice partners through the good work of organizations which receive half of the monies collected each month. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of June is Asbury Park Transformative Justice Project, currently offering trainings and guidance for communities and organizations interested in transformative justice processes concerning sexual violence, community relations, domestic violence. The Transformative Justice Project creates tools outside the criminal justice system to solve and heal injustices. For those of you present here in the meeting house, the place will be passed by the ushers. You may also join this time of generosity via text, send your offering by mail, or charge your contribution online with the memo designating an amount to the Asbury Park Transformative Justice Project. Please give generously.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Rhea Carroll, a religious science minister. So what is science of mind, you ask? Or maybe you don't want to ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Here's what I know, and I'm quoting one of our gurus, I guess, Dennis Merritt Jones. He says, science of mind is based on the inspirations of Dr. Ernest Holmes and his book, The Science of Mind. It exists to facilitate the reawakening of each individual's awareness of the higher self. enabling all who desire to discover and know the ultimate oneness of universal life. We are not Scientology or Christian Science, and we're not opposed to any religious belief or philosophy. We seek to bring the light to the thread of truth that exists in spiritual teachings. Science of Mind offers healing, spiritual understanding, and an opportunity to experience greater love, greater joy, and greater life expression. A quote from Dr. Holmes is, "There is a power for good in the universe, greater than you, and it's yours to use it." Okay, so that's Science of Mind. I gotta tell you, to start, I was raised by an atheist mother and my stepfather, who was very spiritual, but I didn't get it at the time. I was only like 5 or 6 when they got married. But my father, I call him my father, I always did. He was very, very spiritual. I didn't realize it, like I said, when growing up. And he had a deep, deep connection with nature. Later in life, I was calling him Ralph Waldo Emerson because he was in such nature. And I quote Emerson, "Have mountains and waves and skies no significance but what we consciously give them when we employ them as emblems of our thoughts." So then when I started to explore and feel spirituality, I told my father, "You were my first teacher." And he said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Which, you know, he was very confused. And I don't think I ever convinced him. Because growing up, he used to take me on hikes in the woods, in the mountains. And he would show me the birds, the trees, the bees, the clouds. And countless times, we would go hiking almost every other weekend. And then he took me to many trips to the Museum of the Natural History. And when he hiked alone, he would sit in hours on a log, watching the birds, any animal that came by. He even told me he was watching a snake one day. That wasn't my taste, but that's what he did. And I never heard him raise his voice in the whole time. And I thought that must have been his meditation, and that meditation worked for him. So I wanted to explore more. I didn't want to be in a traditional church, especially not Christian or Catholic, because the conversations I had with my friends was so confusing. I couldn't figure it out. Now I'm going to go back to when I was 5, and we still lived with my aunt and my grandparents and my mother. And for some reason, these atheist people signed me up to a congregational Sunday school. Have no idea why. And my aunt told me later that every day, every Sunday, I would come home and I would be singing at the top of my lungs. And I would be singing, "Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. He is weak and I am strong." Apparently, I sang the lyrics in my own unique way. I already was marching to a different drummer. Many years later, I began my spiritual journey at the Garden State Parkway, exit 166, in West Nyack, at a religious science church. And now they're called Centers for Spiritual Living. They were a warm and friendly group, but I had no idea what they were talking about. Initially, I stayed and I learned. And they spoke of a retreat in California at a place called Asilomar, which I did attend many times later, truly a taste of nirvana. And then I had to leave my beautiful home, exit 161, in Paramus. And I moved to Middlesex County in Sayreville, exit 124, on the Garden State Garden State Parkway. I sought more, and I began to attend services at exit 33 on Route 287 in Morristown. However, there was unrest in that congregation. I just didn't feel comfortable. So I went down to Princeton. No exit, but I went down to Princeton. And oddly, there were the same issues there, similar issues anyway. So then finally they got a minister. And I thought, well, I better start taking classes. So I started to take classes. And don't you know, abruptly, the minister decided to leave. So we had no classes. And the new minister at the time was not qualified to teach class. So I had to go back up to exit 33 in Morristown. And I wanted to become a practitioner. And so I wanted to become a practitioner. And a quick definition of a practitioner is we undergo training, specific training in the science of mind philosophy and the practice of science of mind treatment. And we call it treatment, but what it is an affirmative way of praying in the present moment. So eventually, my teacher from Morristown called me a spiritual gypsy because I was going from one church to another, belonging to one church at different times to other. Well then, unfortunately, I had to take a second job. I paused all my studies, and when I didn't lead my second job anymore, I resumed my journey at exit 150. And then I attended the retreat at Asilomar, Pacific Grove, California. This is a beautiful place. I think it's gotten more commercialized, unfortunately, now. But it was built and designed by Julia Morgan, who did the Hearst Castle. And it was very rustic, just beautiful. Just little places all around that you could stay in, and I always stayed close to the ocean. And you could hear, while you were sleeping, you could hear the Pacific Ocean. It was beautiful. And sometimes when you walked out the door, there were deer running by. I mean, it just was so perfect for a spiritual retreat. So then, one of the things is they had speakers, they had music all day long. And I heard the speaker, his name is Robert Bitzer. And he was like one of the big respected religious scientists. But I was so inspired by his speech that I couldn't even do anything but walk out on the beach. And it was, Californians call it misty. New Jersey would call it dense fog. But I walked anyway, and I was in a meditative state. And then I heard a voice say, "You will be a minister." And that was the beginning of my deeper spiritual path, involving many classes. And I took some over and over and over, because I just was a sponge. And then it came time where I decided, well, maybe I will be a minister. And I couldn't find, there's a certain amount of studying that teachers have to be at to be teaching ministerial school. So I couldn't find anybody in my area. But I did find somebody in Paoli, Pennsylvania, like a 2-hour drive. And we would meet once a month. He would give us homework, and then we would meet for a weekend once a month. Sometimes we would meet in somebody's condo by the beach. It was some of my favorite times because we would cook together, we would have dinner together, we'd walk on the boardwalk, and I don't know why I remember this, but the men always got up and did the dishes. And I thought, boy, good training, good training. So after that, there was reorganization going on at head office. And there was a class that we would have to take a week in California called the intensive. And it was. But it was scheduled for a whole year after our classes. So who remembers for a whole year? So we had to go more classes, and our teacher was really very generous and took us on weekends and drilled us. And so when I got off the plane in San Francisco, I really felt confident, maybe a little apprehensive, because nobody back home could explain to me what this intensive was. All I knew was they said it was intense. So then, after that, getting off the plane, I drove to Monterey, Pacific Grove, to a hotel, and that calmed me down because it's a beautiful, beautiful drive. Every day, we went to class from 9 in the morning till 9 in the evening. And they let us break for lunch and dinner, I have to say that. There was 45 of us in the class, and each one had to give a 10-minute talk. Now, if you went over that 10 minutes, they had a buzzer so loud that it would embarrass everybody in there. And there was also, in the back of the room, there was a panel of like 10 well-seasoned ministers watching every move that you made in the class. We were told to raise our hands, answer, and do whatever we could to draw attention to us, which was hard for me, but I did it anyway. And I wasn't paranoid at the time. So I decided to my talk, it's a 10-minute talk, on the time I went to Kmart on New Year's Day. So I went to Kmart on New Year's Day thinking that nobody was going to be there, because everybody should be home nursing their hangovers. Not. So I had to return something, and I went to the long, long, long return line. And I found out a lot of the employees called out, I guess from partying the night before. So I tried so hard to be patient. I knew I was supposed to be patient. Tried was the key word. And Marina, my daughter, was standing behind me with a cart. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited, until I couldn't take it anymore. And I turned around, and I said, Jesus Christ, when is this line going to move? And then I turned around, and there was a nun standing there. And I said, oh, God. And she didn't, either she didn't hear me, or she was just that nice to ignore my inappropriate remark. So we waited some more, and then another clerk came up. So the other clerk came up, the nun went up, she was doing her thing, and then a few minutes later, I went up. And I was done, and I walked by the nun, and she looked at me, and she said, how come you're done? I was praying for patience. I said, I was praying to get out of here. I said, be careful what you pray for. So, and that night, and I just tell you this, that night when I was leaving class, I had a minister that was similar to Reverend Craig. He's a singer and an actor, and he appeared in West Side Story back in the day. And I think he's still producing plays or something. I just got in touch with him again. But I was very impressed with him. And he was standing there. He had about 10 students standing around, and he was talking. And I walked by, shy, hello. And he said, come over here. And I'm like, oh my God, what? And he said, I really liked your talk this morning. So I was set. But after the intensive, we had to go to a panel in a room with 3 other ministers. So I knew there was one person I didn't want at that panel, because he was hardcore, and he could be really rough. So I said, I don't want him. He's very smart, he's brilliant. At one time he was a lawyer, he's a very smart man, but a little scary. Opened the door, and who's sitting there? But the guy. And he said to me, I didn't like your talk. But they wouldn't let me, the other 2 panelists, they wouldn't let me give you my comments. So I can imagine what it was. But I didn't care, because that famous guy told me I did a good talk. So I knew that if a Broadway singer, actor liked my talk, I was set. So that's how I became a minister. I got my license. And then a couple of years later, I was supposed to be ordained, and I have an aversion to paperwork. I had to fill out forms. I had a sponsor and a mentor, and they kept on saying, come on, Rhea, you're ready. You've been ready for a long time. So I finally got ordained 2 years ago. and had a wonderful, thank you. And it was a wonderful celebration, and we had a great time, we really did. And it was in Shark River. So anyway, so that's kind of my story right now, up until now. I did open a center in Asbury Park, in a building called the Center, but when COVID hit, it just didn't work anymore. So now I hold a guided meditation on the beach every other Tuesday. And then about 2 years ago, I arrived at exit 114 on the Garden State Parkway. And it was Elaine, Fairy Elaine, singing here and doing the service. And I surprised her, because we had been in class like 25 years ago. And we were in class together, and she now lives in Florida. But I liked the energy here with these wonderful people. So I kind of stayed, and now I'm a member. And my spiritual journey continues. Namaste. Thank you so much. It was beautiful. So I'm going to do a meditation this morning, a little different. If you would like to close your eyes and take a deep breath and relax and let the breath out. And today, we're in a wonderful day. It's a beautiful 80 degrees with the sun shining. So you decide to take a ride down to the New Jersey shore. And you get there, and you decide to walk across the beach, across to the ocean, step by step, knowing that you're rooted into Mother Earth, knowing that the sea breeze is the universe caressing you, step by step, closer and closer to the water's edge. And you look up and you see this beautiful, beautiful gold throne, bejeweled with precious jewels, diamonds, rubies, emeralds. And it just shines in the light. It's your light. And you sit and you sink into this beautiful throne. And as you sink, all your worries, all your aches and pains just go away. It's a healing throne. And you stretch your legs out to the warm water of the ocean. And each wave comes in, bringing your good and washing away anything that does not serve you. So you sit there for a while, and then you decide there's some things I would like to let go that no longer serves me in my life. So either in your mind's eye you take a pencil and paper, or just remember some of those things. And then you let them go. You let that paper go into the ocean, and it travels It travels to the Pacific, and you see that beautiful line and the beautiful colors of the Atlantic and the Pacific, and it continues going further and further until it gets close to Guam. And there's close by is the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest part of the ocean. And there, you let go of the things that no longer serve you. You put it in the trench, and you watch it go down deeper and deeper and deeper until you can no longer see it. And then when you're finished with that, knowing that it is gone and done forever, you come back to the beautiful throne on the beach, and you sit for a little while longer, feeling the power of the ocean, listening to the beautiful waves, feeling the warmth of the waves washing over you. It's like holy water. And then you think, oh, it's time for me to go home. So you get up and you stretch, and you take the big white fluffy towel and dry yourself off. And you walk slowly back to your car, knowing you are rooted into Mother Earth and feeling the caress of the universe. And you get into your car and you drive home. And whenever you're ready, you may open your eyes and come back to the room. Now, we will have one of my favorite hymns, number 348 in your book, Guide My Feet, and it's an African-American hymn that was sung back in the day when there were slaves. So listen to the words and sing along. Thank you. And now the benediction, which I will do in the form of a science of mind treatment, prayer, affirmative prayer. So I know this truth for each and every one here, in the cities, in the states, in the country, and in the world, that there is peace. There is peace on earth and peace in the world, because there is peace within each and every one of us. And we share that peace, and it permeates throughout the world, and especially today. I know that peace is here right now. And as I allow all this good and all this peace to come to me, as I stand on the mountaintop with my arms wide open, and the infinite supply of good comes to each and every one of us, I am very, very grateful. I am grateful for all there is, for all that is coming. And please accept this peace, this love, this kindness as your own, as it is mine, as it is yours. And in gratitude, I say thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you for all there is, knowing that the law happens right now, and it is truth, and the truth shall set you free. Please join me in saying amen, and so it is.